President.
Senator from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Excuse me.
Mr. President, it's really hard for me to believe that I'm once again standing here on this floor and I have to come before my colleagues here in the Senate to report that despite the fact that we have been building bipartisan support for legislation that will address the catastrophic situation in Flint, we still have one senator standing in the way of this coming to a vote here. It has been now nearly 2 months since Senator Stabenow and I introduced legislation to deal with the catastrophic crisis in the city of Flint. And since that time, we have been able to build a broad coalition of folks on both sides of the aisle, Republican co-sponsors who have joined with us to say that it is time for this body, it's time for the Senate to stand up and help those in need in the city of Flint, as well as issues all across this country. Senator Stabenow and I authored legislation along with Senator Inhofe and a long list of Democrats and Republicans, including Senator Burr and Capito and Kirk and Portman, and have been working very closely with Senator Murkowski as the chair of the committee as well. And yet we have one senator who says that that's not enough. He wants to have more, and that he is standing in the way of the people of Flint getting help that they desperately need. He's standing in the way of children like this young infant that appeared on the cover of Time magazine. To me, those eyes are very compelling. And I think those eyes are very compelling to every American who has witnessed what has happened in that city, who has witnessed the horror and the tragedy of having poisoned water going into people's bodies for many months while a state government dropped the ball. And those folks, I will say, around the country have responded. There has been an outpouring of help from people in every corner of this great country of ours. People have sent bottled water, they've sent filters, are providing resources. It is what this country does. It's what our people do when we see people in crisis, is that we stand up and lend that helping hand. We know that any one of us at any time could be in that situation. And the wonderful thing about being an American is that as Americans, we look out for each other. We know that we are a community, a very special place in this world, and we look out for each other. And that is why people back home in Michigan, and as I travel around the country, people are at a loss to wonder why the United States Congress hasn't done something to address this issue. And when I tell them we have legislation that will help deal with infrastructure, that will help deal with infrastructure not just in Flint, but in communities all across the country, that'll plus up public health programs to deal with lead poisoning at a time when we realize that lead poisoning is not just an issue for Flint, but is an issue for communities all across this country, and one that we need to focus on and have probably ignored for far too long. They wonder why we have not acted. And when I tell them we have one senator, just one senator standing in the way, it only adds to their belief that this is a dysfunctional place, that partisanship and polarization has prevented this body from doing what's right. Well, we can't forget the people of Flint, and I know many of my colleagues here on the Senate floor have not. It's why we have been able to get broad support from both Democrats and Republicans that have come together and said to both my senior senator, Senator Stabenow, and I, we understand it's a problem in Flint, but we also understand it's a problem in other communities around the country. Let's design legislation to deal with that. And that's what we have before us. We have legislation that will provide money for those cities who may be in a declared emergency, which is where we are with the city of Flint. But we also know there may be other communities in this country. In fact, we think there'll be a community very soon that will also have a declared water emergency that would be able to access those funds. We also know that aging infrastructure is not unique to the city of Flint. It's with cities all across the country, and especially older urban areas that have lead service lines, but certainly many rural areas that have that as well. Those pipes need to be taken out. And so in this legislation, we create a fund that will allow money to be loaned to those communities, oftentimes communities that don't have a lot of resources but desperately need infrastructure improvement. It's a loan fund that will be paid back to the taxpayers, but will extend the money necessary to make improvements that truly will be life-saving improvements for the citizens in those cities. We also plus up a number of public health programs from the CDC that deals with lead poisoning in children. The insidious thing about lead poisoning is that once it gets into the brain of a young child like this child who's looking at us right now, it has lasting effect. It has lifetime effect. We need to embrace that child, not just with our love, but also to embrace that child, understand that that child's going to need health care for decades. That child is going to need educational support to be able to pursue his or her version of the American dream that he or she may have. They're going to need to have, in addition to education and health, they need to also have good nutrition and to make sure that the food that they eat will provide their bodies with the nourishment that can counter some of the impacts of lead. But it's not just the children, it's everybody in the city of Flint. It's senior citizens that have also been impacted. You know, I've gone door to door in Flint. I've worked with volunteers, the American Red Cross, going door to door, delivering bottled water to the people of Flint. I never thought I would have to go with the American Red Cross to deliver bottled water to a community because the water they were getting out of their pipes was poisoned. Not in this country, not in the United States of America, but that's what people are doing. And filters as well are being given door to door. And the people of Flint are appreciative. Please know that they are extremely appreciative of the generosity they've seen from people across this country and from FEMA response as well. But they're also frustrated. You can't bathe with bottled water. It's cooking and cleaning food, all of the basic things that we take for granted each and every day. It's simply impossible to live just on bottled water and have that bottled water delivered to you every few days. It is not a workable system. It is unacceptable, and it certainly should be unacceptable to everybody in this country. That is why we need to have a long-term solution. And it has to be a long-term solution that will fix the problem permanently by making sure the infrastructure improvements are there, lead pipes are pulled out, but make sure other support services are going to be there for decades. My fear for the people of the city of Flint is, although they have been the beneficiaries of a great outpouring of love and support from people around the country, they've been able to get that because the spotlight has been on Flint. The TV cameras are on Flint. We all know in today's media world that those cameras eventually will go away. There won't be media attention for Flint. There won't be the bright lights of publicity motivating people to do what is needed in the city of Flint. And when those lights go down and when it goes dark, the people of the city of Flint will still be confronted with this absolutely catastrophic situation that's impacting them at their homes. It's impacting businesses that have been rocked as a result of this, people who don't want to go to restaurants because they're not sure of the water there, real estate values that have plummeted. This is a different kind of disaster than you would have with a natural disaster. If a hurricane goes through or a tornado goes through, you can rebuild and it can be as good as new. Our concern with Flint is that people will always have this stigma attached to the city as a result of this. And if that stigma is there, it's going to make it even more difficult. Now, the people of Flint are resilient. They are courageous. They are brave. They are strong. They will survive, but we need to be there to lend that helping hand. And that is why it is even more frustrating to me, given the fact that when we have natural disasters across this country, this body, the Senate, acts. We send money, we help those local governments, the state governments provide help. Now, I know some colleagues have said, well, this is not a natural disaster, this is a man-made disaster. Well, all I can say is, ask that child, when he or she grows up, does it make a difference if it was a man-made disaster or a natural disaster? Ask the senior citizen in Flint right now. Ask the parent who's concerned about that child. Does it make any difference? I don't think any American here thinks it makes a difference. There isn't anybody in this country that thinks it makes a difference. A disaster is a disaster. Now it's true the state government messed up horribly in Michigan. In fact, the governor's own task force that he appointed to look into it clearly points the fingers at the state of Michigan and the incompetence that was shown by the government of the state of Michigan. That's given. And they are primarily responsible and need to step up, and they have, but they need to do a whole lot more than what they've done so far. But even though the state has to do that and must do that, that doesn't prevent us, the federal government, from also standing up and saying we can help as well. Because that's what we do. It's what the American people expect us to do. And I'm certainly hope that my colleagues will help Senator Stabenow and I move this legislation forward. If we can't get around this one senator who wants to constantly move the goalpost, wants to change the basis of negotiations, even though this legislation is completely paid for. We've used a pay-for that Senator Stabenow fought for, authored to help manufacturers in the Midwest. I fought aggressively to keep that fund when I was a member of the U.S. House. This is something that is important to us, but we know that dealing with a catastrophic situation in Flint and water infrastructure across this country so that we don't have any more Flints is more important. That money will be used to help the people of Flint and communities across the country. And not only does it pay for this, it actually reduces the deficit at the same time. And I think it's important to say, usually when a disaster hits this country, we don't look for pay-fors, we step up and provide money to people in need. We've been asked to come up with a pay-for. We did. Completely paid for while reducing the federal deficit at the same time. And yet we've got one senator who wants more. Wants more. I don't know how that one senator can hold up something that has been able to get this kinds of bipartisan support and can hold up something that is so important to this child in this picture. How can you stand in the way? If that one senator does not like this legislation, that is fine. They can vote against it, but allow the other 99 senators in this body an opportunity to have their say. That is the way this institution is supposed to work. I still believe in this institution. I still believe the Senate can do better than allowing one member to stand in the way of helping this child and other children just like them. It is now our task as members of this body to come together and say, enough is enough. We are going to help somebody in this country no matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter the circumstances. If you have been hit by a major disaster, we will stand with you. We will help you. That is who we are as Americans. It goes to the very core of our values. It is now up to my colleagues here in the Senate. Please join Senator Stabenow and I and our long list of both Democratic and Republican co-sponsors. Put this legislation on the floor. Let us vote on it. Let us pass it, and let us help the people of Flint and other folks all across the country. I yield back.